Wedding officiants and wedding photographers have really scarred each other in our time of working together on weddings. An officiant friend once told me that during the ceremony, the photographer got up on top of the chancel table in the cathedral to get that perfect shot of the couple. And of course, everyone gasped and was completely scandalized. On the other hand, a photographer friend told me that one time they were in a wedding ceremony and the officiant told them ahead of time they had to stand with their backs against the wall as far away from the proceedings as possible. And if they moved from there, he'd call them out. And they did, and he did, and man, it was awkward. So this is a pretty strained relationship between wedding officiants and wedding photographers. Is there a better way? I'm Mark Allen Grollo, a book-solid, full-time professional wedding officiant in Toronto, and today let's talk about ways that we can work better as wedding officiants with our wedding photographer colleagues. It doesn't have to be a war. There doesn't have to be any animosity. This is 5 ways that we can work better, okay? Let's get right to it. First of all, let's discuss requests and expectations with the wedding photographer ahead of time. That simply means that when we arrive on the site on the day of the wedding ceremony and we're doing our pre-wedding ceremony checks and getting into the zone, the first thing that we want to do, one of the first things we want to do is go find the photographer. So in my wedding planning session with the couple, I always ask, what is your photographer by name? I asked them, can I get the name of your wedding photographer? They tell me, so that when I show up on site at the day of the wedding, I look for that person and I can approach them. They're usually very visible with multiple cameras and holsters and slings and all kinds of things. And you can just go up and say, hey Greg, how's it going? I'm Mark, I'm the officiant. And what you want to discuss there, and a lot of times photographers will beat you to it. They'll say, are there any restrictions? What can I do? Do you have any rules? The really gracious ones understand not to get in the officiant's way. And likewise, as a way to kind of outgrace them, I usually say, how about you? Is there anything you need to know? I talk about this in my video about working well with wedding planners. We are going to have non-negotiables as wedding officiants, and that's perfectly fine, and we're all going to have different ones. No, I don't want you to do this. Yes, I need that. So sometimes I'll say to the photographer, are you going to move the microphone out of the way? Please don't. It's all set up. Ask me. Or I've had photographers just kind of barrel me over during the processional. They say, get out of the way. So I've learned that I don't like that to happen. And so I ask them ahead of time, hey, what kind of shot are you going to need for the processional? Now, it's very rare that they'll ask you to get out of the way. Usually they will work around you, but you want to know up front, you want to get on the same page. And so my friend TJ Tindale, who's a photographer here in Toronto, says, I just wish officiants would ask us at the beginning of the ceremony what they need from us. We want to ask them what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And that's why it's really important to get on the same page in terms of expectations. The photographers are expecting us officiants to do something, and we're expecting the photographers to behave a certain way. Have a conversation about it before the wedding ceremony starts. Here's the most important thing to remember when we're working with a wedding photographer. We are on the same team, and it's about giving the couple the best experience, whether that's ceremony on our end, whether that's photos on the photographer's end. We just want to do what is best for the couple. And so let's work together on the same team. Let's get straight to number 2. Number 2 for working well with the wedding photographer is give the wedding photographer a rundown of the order of ceremony. So we've had a quick conversation with the wedding photographer about expectations, what they can do, what we're expecting, what we don't want them to do. The next thing we want to talk about is say, hey, do you want kind of a rundown of the order of the ceremony? Here's the way things are going to go. Let's not be exhaustive. Usually the photographers, they have to get back to work. They're busy. The couple, it's the wedding day. It's happening right now. But we want to say, all right, here is the way things are going to go. So first of all, I'm going to do the processional. And then after that, I'm going to tell their story. There's going to be lots of laughs and things like that. Then we're going to move into vows, then rings. And when we're getting there, I'm going to pronounce the couple as married, and everyone's going to cheer, and then they're going to kiss, and then we're going to sign, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to present the couple as married, and everyone's going to cheer, and then they're going to head down the aisle. Really that fast and simple. I talk about this in another video, why I prefer kiss then sign rather than sign then kiss. And a lot of the times That is the kind of major variation in wedding ceremonies that photographers like to know about. They want to be ready for that kiss moment, and so we want to tell them when that's coming. Is it coming before the signing, after the signing, that kind of thing. So photographers love to know the order of ceremony. Let's tell them that ahead of time so they don't get any unpleasant surprises. Tip number 3 for working well with the wedding photographer is, and I was surprised by this too, but I asked wedding photographers when I was putting together this list, and this comes from them. Number 3 is keep the couple close to each other in the ceremony. Keep them close together. Do you ever see those wedding photos? Maybe you've seen shots of a wedding ceremony where you got the officiant front and center, and then the couple are way apart, like several paces apart. I'm not sure where that comes from, maybe royal weddings of traditions past or whatnot, but photographers love it, and I especially love it, when the couple are standing really close together right in front of me, holding hands throughout the entire ceremony. And guess what? It's not just good for us and the guests, the photographers apparently love it too. So my friend Scarlet O'Neill of Scarlet O'Neill Photography here in Toronto is actually the one who told me this. She said, keep the couple nice, close together in proximity so we could be getting shots of both the couple's faces and the officiant and capture all those reactions, responses in the same shot all throughout the ceremony. It's really great for them. And another tip that Scarlett gives us, and I cover this in How to Do a Wedding Rehearsal, that video, you can check that out, is make sure that you tell the couple that when they are saying their vows, whether they're repeating them or reciting them, or even if they're just listening to the big long question and they just have to say, I do, make sure that they are looking each other in the eye. And I tell them this in the rehearsal. I'm the one doing the talking if it's repeat after me vows, but when you're looking at me and saying the words after I say them and you're looking at me, it's really awkward because it sounds like you're promising your life and love and your undying faithfulness to me, and I don't want that. Do that with each other. So that's usually a moment of levity in the rehearsal, but again, this actually affects the photographer. They want to take lots of pictures of the couple saying their vows to each other, tearing up, smiling, looking into each other's eyes. So let's make sure to remind the couple of that in the rehearsal. This brings us to tip number 4 in working well with the wedding photographer, which is slow down and pause between ceremony elements. In our current zeitgeist of fast-paced media and everything happening so quickly, sometimes we get caught up with that. And really, one of the big issues I think we have is we're uncomfortable with silence. We're uncomfortable with pauses. We feel like we have to fill dead air time, like everything that's happening around us is FM radio. In a wedding ceremony, that's not the case, and it's especially helpful for wedding photographers when we are calmer and slower than I speak in these YouTube videos for you even. I guess I'm caught up in that too, but you got things to do and so do I. So this is the pace that I talk at when I'm doing a YouTube video and talking to you, but in a ceremony, I'm much slower, I'm much calmer, I'm bringing a more stately, dignified air to it, and photographers especially appreciate this. My friend Dustin Newhook of 1111 PMD says, just slow down between elements, giving us time to take those shots. Scarlet O'Neill, she concurs. She said what photographers hope for is an evenly paced ceremony, so they have time to do their job really well. Now, my friend Anastasia of Olive Photography here in Toronto, she says that photographers also want to know if the ceremony is going to be really short. She says photographers expect usually about half an hour long ceremonies, and that's how long mine takes, so she nailed it there. I guess I'm right in the pocket of average in terms of length, but sometimes couples opt for a really short ceremony, 10 to 15 minutes. You might want to tell the photographer that ahead of time. Anastasia says they certainly appreciate that. So they know maybe they've got to take more shots than they typically would because you don't want the ceremony to be over and the photographer to be surprised and have a case where they didn't get all the shots that they needed. So it's nice and slow, even pacing between the elements. It's usually about half an hour, but if it's going to be a lot shorter, let the photographer know, because ultimately the photographer wants the ceremony to have ended with a whole bunch of shots in their camera that they can offer the couple afterwards. Lastly, in this category, my friend Dustin says that we might also want to coach the couple to slow down a little bit for some of the elements. For example, when they're putting the rings on. A lot of the time, the couple is so hyper worried about will it fit, and they're kind of putting it on and rushing it, that we want to be that presence. This is why I tell them in the rehearsal, I'm not going to ask you to say or repeat anything until the rings are on, so that all they have to concentrate on is slowly sliding the rings on each other's fingers. It doesn't have to be rushed. They don't have to be thinking about anything else. And photographers, of course, want to get that ring shot. So we can bring something to the rehearsal by reminding the couple to slow down in the rehearsal, in the ceremony. And the photographers love that as well. That brings us to the fifth and final tip for working well with the photographer, which is get out of the way of the kiss or don't. Now this comes straight from the photographers. I have always taught in my courses for wedding officiants that you want to get out of the way of the kiss. So when it comes time in that ceremony where you are about to pronounce the couple, husband and wife say, and they're going to kiss, you want to step aside during the kiss. But here's the issue. When I talk to photographers, I learned that that is not necessarily ideal, because if you pronounce them and then say, for example, Tom, you may kiss your bride, and then step away, when the photographer starts snapping away at the kiss, you are appearing in every frame, every picture, sliding out of the frame. And that is really frustrating for photographers. So this is what they mean by get out of the way of the kiss or don't. So one thing that I've started to do is I take a couple of steps before I say, Tom, you may kiss your bride. If I'm not saying anything about a kiss, some couples say, don't say anything about a kiss, we'll just have at it. I step out of the way before I say, I pronounce you as husband and wife, or I pronounce you as married. I step out of the way first, so I'm not moving out of the frame in every kiss shot that the photographer takes. So either get out of the way first, or don't get out of the way at all. Stand there and say, you may kiss your bride, and then just stand there. Now the risk of that, and why I always told officiants to get out of the way, is there can be a bit of a photobomby element. You're kind of leering at the couple while they're kissing. You don't want to do that either. So basically, you want to be completely out of the frame, or you want to be in the frame and not looking like a creep. That's basically what Dustin says and Anastasia says. This is the consensus of photographers. Don't make it weird. Figure out something to do with yourself. Get out of the way of the kiss, or don't, but make a decision and really stick with it. There you go, 5 tips for working well with the wedding photographer, and as my friend TJ Tindale says it, 9 out of 10 times, officiants are really great to work with. Oh, thanks TJ. We think so too, and we're on the same team, and we just want to be intentional about expectations, communicating, and doing our job as best as we can, so that the photographers can do the best they can. Hope this was helpful. If it was, hit like, leave a comment, let me know. That was 5 tips. Do you have a 6th, or do you have a nightmare wedding photographer story? We don't want to just slam wedding photographers. Or did you make a mistake as officiant with the photographer? Do you have any stories like that? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because I'm always putting up new videos full of pointers and pro tips all about how to officiate a wedding. See you in the next one.